Swapping between chords is really hard. Is there anything I can do besides practicing loads? Nope, it's all down to practice. Ha! You thought I was going to end the episode there, but I didn't. I tricked you. Ha. Seriously though, the majority of learning guitar is just practice, and there's no exception to that. But I do have a trick that can help you move things along in terms of swapping between chords, well, so fast that no one notices. For more guitar tricks and rants and guitar related stuff every week, make sure you subscribe. But for now, we're going to talk about chord changes. The way we're going to achieve smooth chord changes is all about economy of motion. So just making sure that the way you're moving your hands makes the most sense. You're doing the least amount of work, essentially. So rather than moving my entire hand off of the fretboard when I go swap between chords, which is what beginners will do, I'm going to look at what notes chords have in common, and therefore what fingers I don't actually need to move. Let me get a guitar. It's going to be one of them situations where it's a guitar channel and I play some guitar. So the best example of this is when you want to swap between a C major and an A minor chord. So you'll notice that my first finger on the B string here and my second finger on the D string here don't actually move at all. It's just my third finger that swaps between the G string and the A string. So that's all I've got to do to achieve an entirely different chord. Let's take another example. So G major and E minor. So you see this finger is the only one that needs to move down here. So this finger, my first finger, can stay on the A string, same fret, doesn't have to move at all. And then it's just these higher strings I've got to worry about. So it's not quite as convenient as the A minor to C change, but it's still one finger that you basically don't have to think about at all. But what do you do if the chord shapes are entirely different and there are no notes in common? Well, this idea might not be appropriate to every song or every situation, but it's something that is good to have in your arsenal as an option and can be a lot of fun and can help you come out with some really interesting sounding sequences of chords. For example, we want to go from a G major to a C major. Now that I can do quite quickly because I've been playing for like, what, 15 years? Now the lowest two notes in both C and G are this kind of major interval. I say kind of major interval, it is a major interval. So I'm going between the 1 and the 3rd over here. It's the same on G and C. I started thinking, well, why not just go from there to here? And this is something that I do in most songs. If I have to go from G to C, I'll play this C add 9 shape because I think it sounds interesting without sounding intrusive and unpleasant. The reason this works is that of these two notes, the highest one is a G, so obviously it's allowed in G because it's a root note, but in C we actually have a G note already. It's just that when we do this normal C chord, we use the open G string, but we're going to play another G at the very top, so on the 3rd fret of the E string. And this other note we don't normally have in the chord of C. It's a 2, which we would call a 9 in this instance, which is why it's an add 9 chord. Don't worry if that's confusing. It doesn't get less confusing by understanding why. And the reason having a 2 chord works as well as it does is because we already hear those 2 notes in the G chord preceding it. So that's another option for you. If you've got to swap between 2 chords that are entirely different, see if there's anything they have in common. So even just a couple notes or a portion of the chord is similar between the 2 chords. Try and only move half the chord and see what happens. and you can come up with some really interesting voicings that way. Let's talk about bar chords. So if you're playing an F and you need to follow it with a G, you might be inclined to play an F bar chord followed by a G open. But actually, if you follow the F bar chord by a G bar chord, your shape doesn't have to change, just the position you're at. And if I need a moment to move between, which, as you heard, I did, I can just make percussive noises with my guitar. Perfect. So those are the ways that you can cheat, I guess, at moving between chords. But honestly, practice is the best thing. Practicing to a metronome and taking it very slow and just, yeah, really, really, pedantically going through every possible chord iteration and just practicing changing between those chords to a metronome is the best way. But this can help, just making sure that you're not moving all of your hand when you don't need to. And if you do need to cheat, then you can use the percussive guitar playing, or you can use the extended chord idea where you're using notes you shouldn't normally. Yeah, that does make sense. Thanks so much for watching. I've been Liam and I play guitar, which you may have worked out by now. If you haven't subscribed, I think you should do that. That's very important. And I will see you next Friday at 4 PM GMT. Toodaloo.